Folks, welcome to this Go for Diamond call this evening. Tammy and I are always honored to share these modules, which are the foundation to build a solid organization. We call it a success cycle. Again, you can find all of the modules that we create all on our server. You go to activeteam.com, you select documents. From there, you select English, trainings, success cycles, and they're all listed there. Obviously, we're talking about third-party credibility, and in fact, is such an important training. And before I pass it on to Tammy, one thing I wanted to share with you that we still do third-party credibility, and it's always been the foundation to any kind of success that we've had. If I think about what are the things that I've done to get to this point, it always goes back down to a point where I did a third-party credibility, and from there, it just evolved and grew. I'll turn this over to Tammy. I know that you have some points that you want to add to this.
Yeah, I mean, it is the final step, in my opinion, on creating a duplicatable system. If you want to succeed in this business, you got to be able to not only do the system yourself and get results with it, but also teach this system within the new people that you bring in and have them teach their new people who are going to teach your new people. And over time, you're going to have an explosive organization that are working the system with or without you. And that's how you build this business. And that's how you duplicate this business. So third-party validation, in my opinion, has been very, very instrumental, as Chris has said. I've used people within the organization that people are going to relate to. Obviously, we're going to go through the training, so we'll give some different ideas and insights on how to do this and how it's impacted your results. Yeah, exactly.
For sure. Let's begin, because what we want to do is we want to give you some insights that are important to keep in mind, because it's like your alphabet, right? Your ABCs. And I know sometimes you may say, well, I know. The fact is, even though you know your alphabet, it's always good to revisit the basics. This is something that Tammy and I do all the time. As a matter of fact, we're doing right now. We're revisiting the basics. And from those basics, we are reshaping our future on how we're evolving with our network marketing company right now. And so what we're sharing with you here, despite all the social media talk that we've been talking about, at the end of the day, the basics are the basics. As I mentioned last week, gravity doesn't change in time. Gravity or constants that stays constant regardless of what time of year or what era we're in. So what happens is in a success cycle, we talked about prospecting, we talked about inviting, and then we talked about following up last week. And the reason we insist on doing this training, because it is part of the follow-up. It's kind of like a point B or point 2 of the follow-up process. And we want to share with you some important point as to when you should be using and why you should be using those. But keep in mind that as you are meeting people, and this is one of the biggest challenge that we see with folks that are trying to make a career or that want to make a career in this business or create an income, is they give up too quickly. They don't follow through in keeping in touch. And we want to give you some insights on how do you stay in touch with people, even if they're not interested. I'm telling you, people are a creature of habits, and interests, changes based on circumstances, based on new evidence, based on new information. And this is what you need to keep in mind as you're building your business, and not get discouraged when someone turns the opportunity around. We've seen this over and over and over. So the fact here, and I'll turn over to you, Tammy, in a minute here, is the third-party validation. What we want to talk about, and that's the summary, is we want to talk about why is it important. We mentioned to you earlier how impactful it has been in our business from day one. When to use. Should I use it after, before, after they've seen this? We'll talk about all of that and how to do it. I mean, some of you, I'm assuming from this point on, you should be aware, but some of you may not be aware, right? You may not have done 3-way calls using your cell phones and like rotary phones. I mean, we don't use that anymore. I remember teaching people how to use the link button or the flash button. I mean, this is gone. Everybody uses cell phones now. So we'll give you a quick example how it's done with the Apple device, because unfortunately this is what I use, but it's really the same thing, just different functionality with different devices. Back to you, Tammy.
Yeah. So as we were talking about why it's so important to build credibility, is the big thing is when you introduce somebody who has more experience that can share the bigger picture, but at the same time validate you in the information that you bring. You're going to get a lot of results in doing this. It's a partnership. And people love to be part of businesses where there's community, where there's partnership, working together and supporting each other and helping each other. So it connects your prospect to something bigger. We're sharing the bigger vision, especially when you use somebody who's been there in the business for a length of time. So it really brings that aspect of this company's been around and they've got an amazing track record. And they're global, and all of the aspects that are really important when people are evaluating a business, and builds relationships. The key is to create those relationships with your prospect, but have your prospect also have relationships within the community, within the leadership. And it's cost effective, number one. Yeah, this is a really, really good one, and time effective as well. By doing this third party, you can do this anywhere, and you just book short segments of third party validation, and it makes people feel important as well. So building business building while being trained. See, this is really important aspect here. When I was talking about the duplication process, well, they're actually being trained while you're going through the whole system with them. And if you miss the steps and then you get them into a training platform where they're learning about third-party validation, and they're in their head going, well, what's that? Nobody ever did this with me, kind of thing. The system is important. Following the whole procedure is very important. Okay. And validating you, as I mentioned, this is what your leader's going to bring back, is edifying you back to your prospect, and in creating that credibility as well. It moves your prospect to the next step. And that is basically a decision. Based on the question that the leader will ask, the person that you're bringing into the third party, your prospect, they're going to come out with either a yes or it's not for me. Your leader can even possibly bring referrals into the conversation as well, or they become a customer just to try the products first and to see what the product's doing. So you'll get that feel, and you're going to learn every single time. I can tell you that. You're going to learn every single time you do a third party call. That's why it's important to be open mentally and just being in the conversation, listening, so that you can see how they're moving the prospect along to making decisions. And of course, it is the duplication process, and those who are not using it are really missing the boat.
Tammy, you've covered literally the foundation of why it is important, especially the learning aspect. You remember, Tammy, when we were listening to our uplines in the past, and I think back, and all the trainings and everything we've done, nothing compares to a real live third-party credibility call. It was just unbelievable how much I've learned. And not only you learn the words, but you learn the synergy, you learn the emotional intelligence. I'm not kidding. As you are sharing, we have a lot of experience in sharing in a third party, and we feel people's temperature. And there's an emotional intelligence when it comes to body language, response, especially today with Zooms, where you can see the facial expressions, all the muscles reacting as people, behave as you share. You can tell so much more So there's so much we've learned. I cannot stress this enough. Now let's move into when do we use it? I often we work with team members and they say, well, I don't want to disturb you, right? I want to make sure that they're qualified. Well, yes, that is part for sure. I mean, we don't want people that don't even know it's network marketing. They don't know their supplements. I mean, at the end of the day, you do have to do a little work. In other words, you have to lay out the foundation unless you're absolutely brand new, but that's different, right? That's different. We grab you by the hand. But when you've been in a business for 6 years or 3 years or 6 months or 3 months or 3 weeks, you got enough to really start initiating. That's what's important. And you need to initiate the process. But it's really during a follow-up process. See, often the person may not be ready or maybe some of you are trying to invite people to our evening presentations. We call them the MVPs. And people don't show up. And they don't show up because you don't validate the call enough. Here's a perfect opportunity example where you can use any one of us, especially the people that are about to present. All the presenters have been presenting for quite a while now. They know the routine. And if you know that this person can relate to whoever's going to be speaking, introducing that person to, even if they're not part of your team, you guys are, I mean, you know the drill. You can support each other, scratch my back, scratch your back. Even though you're not necessarily part of the same team, you will benefit from each other's knowledge. Tammy and I have always been a big believer in that. Sometimes it doesn't serve us well because we expose our team to the world. But on the other hand, it has served us very well because we've been very strong and very good in creating synergy. And I don't care if people decide to jump ship because they see something else somewhere else. It's up to them. I know what we have to offer. I know the kind of quality of mentoring and support. I'm telling you, it's rare. It's difficult to find. And often people have come back and it says, you know what? We really appreciate what you guys bring to the table here. And I'm not saying that I know what we provide. So the fact is, I'm very open and I suggest that it's good for you to connect with each other and utilize each other. But honestly, if you are being mentored or trained by people who have made millions of dollars, and you guys know we've made this kind of money because you can't live the life we're living if you don't make this kind of money over the year. You understand the credibility is there. So technically, if you're talking to someone who is interested in making money, I don't see why you would even hesitate. But the point here is these are during follow-up or during the close. If you want to help someone be on the product, you want to help someone get started. And one of the things is that I often ask the person when I initiate the process, and the question, the example is right there. What did you like best about what you saw? Not what do you think? Because when you're asking questions and leave it up to them, and if they're negative people, I guarantee you'll be dealing with negative stuff. And that's okay. But if you control the conversation by starting from a positive point of view, that's the difference between the amateur and the professional. Is a professional will start from a positive point of view. And from that point on, the person, even if they might be a negative person, that's okay. Doesn't mean they won't be interested. It's just the way their mind is designed. It's the way they're wired. But if it's properly set up, you'll find that, you may get some really interesting results and really good results. And the fact here that's important is be specific and don't be shy. If it's about the money or if it's about both, what would you like best about the comp plan? What did you like best about the product? And I know often we lead it with the product because people are more comfortable because they don't have to deal with the fear of dealing with money. And that's a very typical situation. But that's when a third party can really help you soften the approach. Number two, here's a really typical one, is on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest. In fact, this morning, we just talked about it with some of our team leaders in the Philippines, and you got to be very specific, right? Very clear. Clarity of the message is really, really important. 1 being the least or not interested, and 10 being the highest. How do you rate yourself? And let the people answer. If it's a 7, the chances are they're going to be either on the product, or they're going to be attending a presentation, or they're going to be signing up with you. And you guys, I've known that. You've witnessed that. Okay. You've lived the experience of that. So asking the gauge, it's a really good and soft approach, and they're selling themselves on where they feel on that ladder of interest. And number 3 is introduce your mentor leader, whatever it is for you, as part of the follow-up process. It's important that your prospect does not feel that this guy is going to try to sell him because he's a millionaire, because he's rich and blah, 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 blah. This is very, very important because it's sensitive, right? So you want to make sure that if you get a third party involved, you make them understand that the reason why you wanted to speak for another person is because you want them to see through their eyes, their experience, because they've traveled the world. They've made millions. They've helped literally countless of tens of thousands of people explaining what this product can do and the benefits. And I wanted him to share their experiences with you so you can have a better, you have a better platform to make an educated decision. You see how I word it? So the person, when the call is initiating, they don't feel, or she or he doesn't feel that you're going to be sold on something. And that's exactly why you may be having a hard time introducing someone to the call for a third-party credibility, because maybe that element right there hasn't been clarified and the person doesn't want to be sold. Nobody likes to be sold on anything. I know I don't like it. But if someone is doing me a favor and introducing me someone, very often people have introduced me to other people to explain or expand, so I tend to be a bit of a detailed person. I like to understand what's under the hood. It's just the way I'm wired. And when someone offers that kind of knowledge, I'm curious. I'm very happy, especially if the person knew what they were talking about, because now I'm in a better position to make an educated decision. And that's how you want to set the third party call. So I hope that that's clear. Back to you, Tammy.
Yeah, just kind of going back to that, Chris. I tend to like to establish a connection with the two parties before I bring them into a third party, how they're going to really connect well together. So you're setting it up for them to show up. And you know that they're both going to really connect. Find something that you know that they're going to connect with, whether they're in the corporate world. Both of them have been in the corporate world before. Both of them have done sports. Both of them have done certain things. And that's how I've been able to do really well in bringing people into a third party validation session. And it doesn't have to be a top leader. It could be somebody that you know that they're going to connect really well with, that they have experience and they can move them to make some decisions and to help you make those decisions, right? So that's the goal in bringing a third party validation in there. And if they lean towards a product, don't worry. The person that you bring into, you're going to set up the conversation really well, and you're going to make sure that in that conversation, if they are passionate about the products, the leader is going to move them the needle through the products, but bring in some conversation to see if there is a business interest, but in such a delicate way. I know that's what we do, that if they're open, great. If they're not, that's fine too. And so I just wanted to add a little bit of element to that. So third-party credibility preparation is determine the purpose and the desired outcome of the conversation. When you're talking to your leader, you have to have a good conversation with the person that you're using for the third party. It could be a quick message too with some key points. Example, they've tried the products and your goal is to have them show up to one of the presentations. So now the third party, the leader, knows where to move the needle because they don't know the whole conversation that you've already had with that person. The more the leader knows about setting the stage for the conversation, the better results that you're going to get in that third party outcome. Okay. And then number 2 is to plan ahead. And you want to plan ahead, knowing whether the presentation is the next step, a Zoom session is the next step. I mean, we say one-on-one or phone call. I think a lot of people don't even use the phone calls anymore. Maybe some WhatsApp in different international markets, but I think Zoom has been the most effective. People want to see people. and you can read people really well when people show up on Zoom. And I don't think there's anybody out there that doesn't know about Zoom. I mean, everybody went into online learning when it came to the last 3 years. So everybody knows these platforms really well. And then you want to brief, of course, your mentor, especially at the last minute, brief them quickly, send them the points again, because people get busy. You want to remind them where you want to move the conversation into and see how far it's going to go, and to see what the desired outcome and the timing of the conversation too. You want to make sure that you respect the time of the prospect. Ask them how much time they'll have, and you want to let the leader know too. Because if the leader goes on and on and on and on, and your prospect only has 10 minutes, guess what? They've already tuned out. So you gotta know where to bring all of this stuff in. And you know how you learn all this stuff is by doing it. That's how Chris and I are so good at this stuff. We're so natural at doing all of this stuff. And number 4, if you're doing a three-way call, make sure that you know how the technology works. Obviously, that is something that you got to work on. And of course, the phone equipment and how everything works there. I think pretty well everybody has an idea, but new people, sometimes they don't know this stuff because they've never been in business in the networking field and understand how all of this works. And you're going to have to train your brand new people. Let them watch the sessions, but you got to practice with them. And that's how they get good. When you sign somebody up, your job as their leader is to make sure that they can work this system. You're training them through the whole process on every single step. They watch a video, you walk them through the process with them. You're gonna do some third-party validation sessions with them. You set them up to succeed.
Absolutely. And sorry, were you done?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, because it's pretty scary when you're doing this for the first time. I don't know about you, but I was really scared and I messed up a few times. And but you just get good at it. You get comfortable at it. So the key is to make sure the people that you're the leader that's working with you, the third party validation person that's going to be working with you is helping you get this all rolling.
Yeah, and one thing that's important is the very first one here is determine the outcome of the conversation. I just want to underline that. It's like setting goals. It's also setting the right intentions. You know what you think about expand? And if you always think on a negative aspect of things as to they're not going to be interested, they're not going to want to afford it, they're not going to, that unfortunately, again, setting the intentions is absolutely critical. And from there, prepare the call. I'm telling you that I would say that 95% of success calls that we've had were people that were well prepared. They knew exactly the outcome that they wanted, and they didn't shoot from the hip and see where they wanted to go and see where their interest lies. They knew exactly what they were aiming for. That really simplifies and helps the process of the third-party credibility. And before I move on to the next step, because we're pretty much almost done here, if you're interested, I use a system called, you can check mine, Book Call with Chris. Book Call with Chris.com. This is a domain I created, and it points to a system that I'm paying every month for. You don't need to do that. I chose to do that because it has very sophisticated. It creates a calendar appointment. It generates a links to my Zoom account. It sends an email to my prospect. It sends an email reminder the day before. It sends an email reminder 15 minutes before. And I like that system. And I'm telling you, when someone book a call with me, I would say 98% people show up because of the process that it does. And I really like seeing people. I'm a people person. I like to see people when I speak with them. And this is something that I use. On the other hand, Tammy uses another system with Google Calendar.
No, I use Candly.
Yeah, which is
Calendly.
Yeah, but it's connected with your Google Calendar and mine
Yeah.
too. But Calendly there's the free version, and it works perfectly, very nicely. Okay. So these are things, and my recommendations again is just go to YouTube. How do I, but try them out. I don't know if that means you have a domain for yours, people that you can just mention.
No, but you just made me think about it. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah,
I'll have to get the book a call with Tammy. Yeah. .com. And then.
Yes. So, and I know you send a link to people and they book the appointment and it goes into your calendar. So these are all things that I do that really elevates the level of professionalism. When I speak with a professional, they really like the way I work, and right away the impression is very, very strong. And it's like 50% of the sell when I speak with them, because they like the system that I have in place. It shows that we're professional, we know what we're doing, and we're serious about our business. So the point right now is a third party credibility how-to. So what happens here is this is either by person or by phone. It could also, we should add this also by Zoom. Okay. I mean, it's the same thing. So one thing that's very important is that you introduce the mentor, the leader, and you edify them. So for example, let's just say that I'm edifying Tammy, right? Let's say to you, Beth, right? Beth is my guest, for example, and I'm edifying Tammy. So Tammy can will validate her. And then from there, once it's done, then I will validate Beth to Tammy. So I'm the associate. So this is the portion when Tammy she creates a relationship and relativity when to connect the two. But when you do the introduction, you can bring this back also, the commonality between the two, or whatever you feel that may actually create some familiarity to facilitate the connection for the call. The better the connection, the more successful the third party call will become, right? And then what's really important here is when you are done, right? You don't want to talk too much. You don't want to say too long. You don't want to overinflate the introduction because it seems awkward to the guest. And you know what I'm saying, right? So you just use your common sense and edifying to understand that why there's value to speak with that person. And the person is a third party. Why, is the guest value to you and what she brings to the table. And it creates a sense of pride. And it just creates a nice synergy of an environment that people like to be part of. And then you turn the conversation and let your leader, the mentor, the third party credibility, the person who's actually been invited to validate, let them do it. Now, we kind of tease a little bit by saying put a duct tape on until the conversation goes back to you. But the reason why it's like that is because so many times we're actually going somewhere. We're about to make a sale, but the associate is inexperienced. And sometimes they're going to start throwing a little wrench and questions and situations to confuse the conversation because they're trying to learn in the process. So it's not wrong, but it causes challenges and difficulties that will make the third party credibility more difficult to convert. If you understand my meaning, that's what we mean by duct tape. In other words, let the process and trust the process once you initiate the call. Then after that, when you close off the conversation, the goal is for your mentor leaders to move your prospect to make a decision or to go to the next course of action. What's the next step? And that's what an experienced validator or a third-party credibility or mentor, if you want to call it that, right? That's where the experience comes in. And then from that point on, once the call is completed, there's a clear next step. The guest knows what they need to do. And one of the biggest challenge that happens in third-party credibility is a lack of clarity. And where there's confusion, people stand still. They don't make decisions because I just don't have enough. It doesn't make sense. And they may not tell you that, but that's what's going on behind the scene. Okay. So these are the important element on the how-tos to validate the third party credibility. And we'll come back to that in a minute for a summary. So back to you, Tammy.
Yeah. So the how-tos, obviously we have the phone, you can see WhatsApp, the icon on the top right. Chris put some circles there on how to connect the two parties. Obviously, everybody has to be on WhatsApp. And then you have Messenger. You've got the icon on the bottom left that you're able to connect the two parties as well. I personally like Zoom, and I've been using Zoom the whole time, all through the last 3 years, and we've moved the needle very, very easily because it was so easy to connect through the Zoom platform. It was such an easy process, answering questions back and forth, seeing where people are at. I would actually open up my max.com and I would walk them through the process on how they could get signed up. I'd show them the different packages so they're visually seeing all the process. And some of them wanted to get started right away. They wanted to give their information and get it done. Some of them wanted to have the link and to discuss it with their spouse and go further with that. And when somebody wants to discuss it with their spouse, I tend to set up another appointment so that we can go through the process with their spouse so they can see the different packages and they can answer any questions they might have. So these are the how-tos in technology to be able to do your third-party validation.
Yeah, and this is how we started the call, right? Leveraging leaders equal leveraging income. Mm-hmm. This is so important that you get this. If you leverage the people that are making real tangible money, they're not faking it, they're living the money, the real tangible, income potential. I'm telling you, it's going to reflect into your income. If you're kind of a lone ranger, always trying to do this by yourself, it'll be a struggle. You need that third party credibility. And it's not just because a third party knows more than you at all by a long shot. It just gives you leverage to have someone else to cross-reference what you just shared, what you just said, instead of always you being the teacher that knows it all. And that's why it is so, so powerful.
Yeah, and you also learn different ways too by listening to each other. That's why Chris and I like to do third-party validation with other people, because then we get to listen and take notes. I mean, we've done third-party sessions with Scott Nagasawa, and it's like, oh my gosh, amazing stuff, So it's important to leverage as much as you can. So as you can see, a third-party validation is just a phone call away, and you can be anywhere. I've done third-party validation sessions literally in my car last minute. I'm in a parking lot on the way to the grocery store and somebody would connect with me. I mean, obviously it's better if it's planned, but if we can do it, we're going to do it. And I'd be say, okay, great. Send me your Zoom link and I hop on, or we do the quick call. And we've had great success. I mean, people know that people are on the go too. And they let the person know that they were trying to catch me last minute, and she may or may not get a hold of me. And I just happened to be there and it worked out perfect. So, I mean, sometimes this thing happens where people just have a moment to be able to do this. And the new and inexperienced people too, they don't know any better, and you don't want to make them feel bad. You just help them out. And then you can always let them know, hey, by the way, have you watched a third-party validation training? Let's go through it together, because I want you to have the best results. And I want to do my best to help you get the best results. So you want to help people. Yeah, that way.
And the other thing that's also very good is today, when you do a third-party validation, let's say you connect on Facebook, then this credibility can carry on where, the person could be posting something, you can put a like on it, you can put a heart on something as a third-party validator, to showing that you appreciate the person. You may appreciate, it just creates more of a relationship to solidify. to solidify the relationship with your team member that you're trying to reinforce. It shows support. I mean, social media, right? It comes in so many forms on how you can support. So at the end of the day, folks, the summary of all this is your role as the associate is to edify your mentor, your leader. I'm saying mentor leader so you can understand the difference. Is the third party credibility person, right? And edify your prospect. Always make sure there's a balance between the two. Okay. And then stay quiet during the conversation between the leaders and your prospects so the goal can be achieved. Remember, if it's a clear definition as to what you're trying to do as the outcome to this call, to get to the outcome of the call, your results are most likely elevate in percentage significantly and have a very clear direction as to, for the prospect as to what is the next step, right? Your mentor's role is to edify you, to validate you, to bring credibility around what you're doing, who you are, what you're talking about, right? Build a relationship with you and your prospect. Okay, this is very important, and move your prospects to help you move your prospect to the next course of action. This is the goal. This is all it is.
And the goal is always to improve skills. I mean, we're constantly working on ourselves, elevating our skills. And in this business, I mean, things change quite fast. But at the end of the day, this part is practice. Really, it is practice. And the more you practice with third-party validation and bringing people into a conversation and just introduce the parties and just listen and learn. You set up the session as we were explaining, set the intention, set everything up, and then sit back and learn so you can grab some of these nuggets and go, oh my gosh, I like the way he said that, or I like the way she said that. You don't say it out loud, but in your head. And you can even take notes if you're just sitting there. So it gives you an idea of where you want to go when you start doing third-party validation with your teams, which I'm sure a lot of you are doing already. And but your new team members, they need to learn how to do this so that they can eventually be that person.
So as we're coming to an end here, just before the assignment, remember I talked about setting intentions and goals. This is very powerful. And I know that people think it's still witchcraft. And I truly believe that what you think about expands. It's part of our DNA. It's really interesting. I mean, I've been looking at this and studying this and reading about it because I was a skeptic for so many years until I realized, oh my God, this really does work. What you focus on the most expands. So set the right intentions in your own personal belief in the outcome when you are setting your goals in reference to what you want to achieve when you introduce a prospect to a third party. Very important. So Tammy, let's talk about the assignment quickly here.
Yeah. So what we recommend to do is spend your week practicing. Start going through your list. Who are the people that you need to follow up with? Who can you do a third-party validation session with them? And set those assignments and do this on a weekly basis. The more you're doing third-party validation, the more results you're going to get. You want to book the leader and put that in your schedule. You'll be setting up the Zoom session or whatever it is that you'll be doing with the prospect and the leader. And make sure that you write down key points, which is really important because sometimes when you're new or you haven't done it in a while, you can be nervous. So write down 3 key points about the leader that you know about. And if you can't think about it, just ask the leader, what should I say? And keep those 3 points so that in the future, you know what to say about that person. And then keep track. The key is to keep track of your results. And the more you do the activities, the more results that you're going to get in the conversion rate. And you'd be
Absolutely.
surprised how many people you would think would only be a customer changes their mind after a third-party validation session. I don't know how many times people said to me, Tammy, I'm pretty sure that they just want to be a customer. And I said, great. I said, let's get to know them and see where they're going with all of this. And then I'd end up having a normal conversation with them which turned out where they are actually looking for something and that person didn't even know they were looking for something. And then they turned around and either joined or they decided to give the product a go, but with the intention of joining the business if they see a result, which we already know they're going to get a result. It's just a matter of follow-up, right?
Perfect. Okay, well, thank you. So have yourself a wonderful evening, rest of your evening, and have a great, wonderful day back into the Philippines. Okay, everybody, bye for now.